The day the copper arrived, the whole village gathered at the square as though a festival had begun. Children ran barefoot, women adjusted their wrappers, and even the palm wine tapper stopped climbing halfway up his tree. Outsiders were rare here, and this one stepped out of the dusty white bus like something from another world. His shirt was crisp, his shoes too clean for the red earth, and his smile carried that easy city confidence that made even the old women whisper. His name, they said, was Tund, the new teacher posted from Lagos. From behind her mother's stall, Ibube watched him. She tried to look uninterested, but her heartbeat betrayed her. His voice rolled deep when he greeted the elders, his laughter easy. When he lifted his bag over his shoulder, the muscles beneath his shirt flexed slightly, and she caught herself staring. Her mother noticed. Close your mouth before fly enter, Mama Ijike murmured, giving her that look, half warning, half prayer. Remember what I told you. These Lagos boys are sweet only when new. Ibube nodded quickly, pretending to arrange the peppers on the table. But the image of him was already carved into her mind. That night, while the moon floated pale over the village, she lay awake replaying his smile. The next morning, before the cocks had finished crowing, she slipped out of bed, tied her wrapper tight, and hurried down the path that led to the main road. There, beside the old mango tree, she hid behind the thick trunk. The leaves smelled of sap and dust. When he appeared, white shirt, brown satchel, walking with long lazy strides, her breath caught. He didn't look like a teacher. He looked like a secret she wasn't meant to see. She watched until he vanished around the bend, then pressed her palms together and whispered a shy laugh to herself before hurrying home. Later, as her friends fetched water at the stream, she told them how handsome he looked, how even the sun seemed to follow him. They teased her, splashing water on her legs. Ibube, forget that one, Adiz said. Coppers don't stay. When the moon changes, they vanish. But Ibube only smiled, staring at her reflection in the river. The ripples blurred her face, yet she could still see the small glow in her eyes. Something had begun inside her, small, bright, and dangerous as fire under dry leaves. Each morning after that, the village awoke to the rhythm of Ibube's secret. Long before sunrise, she would slip out quietly, wrapper tied firm, bare feet light against the cool earth. The air smelled of dew and roasted yam from the neighbor's hearth. Birds chattered lazily in the tall trees as she made her way to the old mango by the roadside. From that hidden spot, she watched Tund pass every day. Sometimes he hummed to himself. Sometimes he was whistling. Once he carried a pile of exercise books under his arm, and the wind blew a sheet loose. He caught it midair with a kind of grace that made Ibube's stomach twist. She never missed a morning. Even when rain threatened, she stayed, watching through droplets, shivering but smiling. And every evening, she relived it with her friends. They gathered in the courtyard, pounding yam, giggling like children. He greeted me today, she'd say softly. He said good morning and smiled. Her friends rolled their eyes, laughing. That's how it starts. He will greet you today, borrow your heart tomorrow, and by next month, he'll carry it to Lagos. But Ibube's heart was already gone. When she closed her eyes at night, she saw his stride, his lips, the small curve of his neck where sweat shimmered under the sun. She had never known her own body to feel like this. Restless, burning, alive. One morning, her hiding game almost betrayed her. She arrived early before dawn, hiding behind the mango tree as usual. But this time he stopped midway on the road and stood still. Ibube's heart skipped. Had he seen her? Tund turned slightly. His head tilted as though listening. Then he smiled. He didn't move closer, didn't say a word, just smiled at the space between them and walked on. For the rest of that day, she could barely breathe. Her hands trembled when she washed dishes. That smile haunted her. It wasn't accidental. He had seen her. That night, she sat outside alone, the crickets singing loud in the dark. She traced her fingers over her lips, whispering his name under her breath. Tund. Her mother's voice startled her. Who are you talking to, Ibube? She froze, heart hammering. Nobody, Mama. But inside she knew. Tomorrow she would still be under that tree. And if he smiled again, she would not hide her eyes this time. The morning smelled of ripe guava and wet earth after the early drizzle. Ibube hid behind the mango tree as always, her heart beating too loudly for her stillness. But today was different, she didn't know why. Maybe it was the way the wind refused to stay calm, or how her palms kept sweating even though the air was cool. Then she saw him, Tund, walking down the narrow path with his shirt sleeves rolled up, collar open, a lazy confidence in every step. His satchel swung at his side, and when the sunlight touched his face, it was as though the whole road brightened. She watched like she always did, until his steps slowed. He stopped, turned, and looked straight toward the mango tree. Ibube's breath caught in her throat. She ducked, but too late. His eyes had found her. He walked closer, slow, deliberate. His shoes crushed dry leaves, each step louder than her heartbeat. She pressed her back against the bark, eyes shut tight. When she opened them again, he was standing there, a few steps away, smiling with that quiet mischief that made her knees weak. You're always here, he said softly. Every morning. Ibube swallowed, words stuck in her throat. I, I fetch leaves for the goats. He chuckled. Ah, the goats must love this spot then, because you've been feeding them for 3 weeks straight. Her cheeks burned. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I see you every day, hiding behind this tree like a secret. Why? She looked down. Because you're always worth looking at. The words slipped out before she could stop them. She wanted to grab them back, but he smiled wider. That slow, dangerous kind of smile that warms and warns all at once. Then look properly, he said. He leaned on the tree beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. The scent of soap and faint cologne reached her nose, the heat of his body wrapping around her. Her pulse trembled. He wasn't touching her, yet she could feel him everywhere. Ibube, he said, as if tasting her name. That means glory, doesn't it? She nodded. Then maybe that's why this place shines when you're here. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. He straightened slowly, eyes lingering on hers, and then turned to leave. Just before the road curved, he looked back over his shoulder and said, Tomorrow, don't hide. Ibube stood frozen long after he disappeared. The morning breeze carried his scent, her name, and something new that pulsed deep inside her, something that frightened and thrilled her all at once. That night she couldn't sleep. The sound of his voice replayed in her head until it melted into a dream where he stood before her, saying the same thing again. Tomorrow, don't hide. The next morning, Ibube didn't hide. For the first time since she started watching him, she stood in the open, her heart racing, palms damp. The sun was soft yet bright, bathing the dusty road in gold. She saw Tund coming from afar, his shirt freshly pressed, his satchel hanging lazily at his side. When his eyes found hers, he slowed his pace. Her body stiffened, but she didn't move. When he reached her, he stopped just close enough for her to smell the faint scent of cocoa butter on his skin. Good morning, Glory, he said, smiling. Good morning, sir, she replied, her voice barely steady. He chuckled. No need for sir. It makes me sound old. She smiled shyly. He looked at her for a moment that lasted longer than it should. Then he said, I've been wondering what you do after you watch me leave every day. I go home, she whispered. Maybe tomorrow, he said softly. You could walk with me instead. Her heart stumbled. She nodded. And the next morning she did. Their walk was filled with laughter and shy glances. He asked about her life, her dreams, her mother. She told him about the village, about how everyone expected her to stay pure and quiet. He teased her gently. Pure, You talk like you're afraid of yourself. Ibube laughed, but the truth hid behind her smile. In his presence she wasn't afraid, just awake. Weeks passed. Their walks became daily. Sometimes she helped him mark papers after class, their heads bent close together. His hand would brush hers, lingering a second too long. The air around them thickened with something neither could name aloud. One evening, rain trapped them in his small staff quarters. Thunder rumbled, and the roof dripped softly in places. Ibube stood by the window, watching the storm. Tund walked up behind her, his voice a whisper near her ear. You're shaking, he said. I'm fine, she breathed, though her chest rose and fell too fast. He reached forward, fingers grazing her arm, a simple small touch that set her body ablaze. Her breath caught. His hand stayed there, warm and trembling with restraint. When she turned to face him, their eyes locked. He hesitated. The space between them flickered with thunderlight. Then slowly he cupped her face, thumb tracing her jaw. Tell me to stop, he whispered. Don't, she said, voice shaking but certain. He smiled against her lips. You don't even know what you're asking for. Then teach me, she breathed. Don't laugh at me, just show me. I could never laugh at you. His fingers brushed her cheek. You're trembling. I'm not afraid. Just anew. Then we'll go slow, he murmured. Promise me you'll tell me if. I'll tell you if you stop, she interrupted, a half smile breaking through her nervousness. He chuckled softly. You think you can command me already? Maybe I can, she teased. He drew back slightly to look at her. You've got fire hiding in all that sweetness, Ibube. Maybe you're the one who lit it, she said, lifting her chin. For a long heartbeat neither moved. Only the hiss of the lamp and the sound of their breathing filled the room. Then he kissed her again, slow, deliberate, tasting the words she hadn't yet learned to say. Later, tangled in quiet, she traced circles on his chest. Was that wrong? She whispered. No, he said. It was us finally telling the truth. And now what happens to me? You live. You breathe. You remember that love isn't a sin. She smiled, eyes closing. Then let me remember. From that dawn onward, she came to him before the sun. 3 soft knocks, the creak of the door, his sleepy grin. You again, he would whisper, pulling her in. I couldn't sleep. You'll get me fired. Then you'll have time for me, she'd say, laughing against his neck. Some mornings he tried to be serious. I'm late already, Ibube. 5 more minutes, she'd plead. You said that yesterday. Then I'll say it tomorrow too. He'd sigh, half defeat, half delight. You'll be the end of me. And the beginning, she'd answer. Each exchange deepened the pull between them. Words became touches. Touches became quiet laughter. Laughter dissolved into silence that spoke for them. One morning as he buttoned his shirt, she said softly, "Do you ever wish I hadn't found you?" He paused. "Every day I wish I could be better for you. But never that you found me." "Then stop worrying," she said, stepping close. "I already decided what's good for me." He smiled, kissed her forehead and whispered, "You sound like trouble. I learned from the best." He lingered, late again, until the school bell rang in the distance. "Go," she said, pushing him toward the door. "I can't when you look at me like that." "Then don't look," she teased. He laughed, kissed her once more, and finally left, shirt half tucked, smile half guilty. When the door closed, Ibube stood in the quiet, touching her lips and whispering to the empty room, "Now I know what love feels like, and I don't ever want to unlearn it." The weeks that followed blurred into one long heartbeat. Ibube no longer woke to watch Tund from the tree. She woke inside his mornings. She knew the scent of his soap, the sound of his laughter before he even spoke. The whole village still saw her as their perfect daughter, but inside, something had changed. Her body knew another rhythm now, one that began and ended with him. Most afternoons she came to his quarters under the excuse of helping him mark papers. The small room always smelled of chalk dust, candle wax, and him. When she entered, he would glance up from his desk, and the world outside the window seemed to pause. Sometimes he taught her silly Legos songs. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, their shoulders brushing, each breath turning heavier than words. When his hand finally found hers, it was never rushed. He touched her like she might fade if he moved too fast, fingers tracing her wrist, her palm, the curve of her neck. The first time she leaned in and kissed him again, there was no rain, no thunder, only the soft hum of a ceiling fan and two people learning how close skin could feel when it trusted. The kiss deepened slowly, breath mingling, his thumb drawing small circles against her spine until her knees weakened. She rested her forehead on his shoulder, whispering, "Don't ever stop being this gentle." But outside, the days were counting down. His service year was almost over. The other coppers had started packing. Whenever she asked him what would happen when he left, he would kiss her instead of answering. The kisses became longer, needier, tasting like farewell. Then one evening, he stood by the window after they'd held each other too long and said quietly, "Ibube, your mother is beginning to hate me. I see it in her eyes." She shook her head, tears stinging. "She just doesn't understand. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." He turned toward her, eyes dark with a mix of desire and sadness. "If I stay, I'll ruin the peace between you and her." "Then ruin it," she whispered, pressing her lips against his. Her hands trembled as they touched his face. He kissed her back, slow and aching, until both their breaths broke. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers and said the words she feared most. "You'll hate me if I make you choose." The next morning he was gone. No note on the desk, no sound of the door. Only his scent clung to her wrapper and the empty space where his body had been. That night, she lay on his bed, tracing the outline where he used to sleep, her body remembering him more vividly than her mind could bear. Every heartbeat ached with the ghost of his touch, the warmth, the weight, the slow tenderness that had awakened her and abandoned her all at once. For days after he left, the village felt emptied of color. The path she once ran to meet him now looked dull. The mango tree stood like a witness refusing to speak. Ibube moved through the days as if someone had stolen her heartbeat. Her mother's scolding became background noise. Her friend's laughter sounded far away. At night, she lay in his bed, tracing the hollow his body had left, her skin remembering every breath, every whisper that had filled that room. It wasn't only his touch she missed. It was the way he made the air feel alive around her. When her mother forbade her to speak his name again, something inside her snapped. One dawn, before the roosters finished crowing, she packed her small bag, tied a scarf around her hair, and walked to the motor park. The bus to Lagos smelled of dust and fuel, and she sat by the window, watching the hills shrink behind her until the red soil disappeared. The city greeted her with noise and glare. She wandered through streets, clutching his name on her tongue like a prayer. When she finally saw him, standing outside a small kiosk, wearing the same satchel, surprise freezing his face, her knees almost gave way. "Ibube," he whispered. She didn't answer. She ran to him, tears blurring her eyes. The moment he caught her, the world vanished. Only the pulse of his arms around her, the tremor of his breath against her neck. He pulled back, guilt and relief wrestling in his gaze. "I left because of you," he said quietly. "Because every argument with your mother broke something in you." She shook her head, voice trembling. "You didn't leave because of me. You left me." Silence hung between them, thick as heat. Then she reached up, her fingers brushing his cheek, and whispered, "Don't explain. Just hold me." He did. The air between them hummed, soft, aching, charged. Their lips met again, not with hunger this time, but with the tenderness of people who have crossed deserts to find each other. The city noise faded until only their breathing remained. Later, when the sun began to fall over the rooftops, Ibube rested her head on his chest and whispered, "I don't care where we live. I just don't ever want to wake up and not find you." Tund held her tighter, his hand tracing slow, careful circles on her back as if memorizing her shape again. The wind stirred around them, warm and forgiving, carrying the scent of the village far away. In that moment, she knew she had followed not foolishness, but her own heart, and for the first time since the mango tree, she felt whole.